Personal reinvention is an imperative for women. This is a longer spoken word activation, but I want to explain why this is true for me and why it is true for you, and it's worth listening to. So please don't scroll, keep listening. Those who are willing and able to reinvent themselves as the need arises are the ones who will change this world for the better. I've been a bartender, server, restaurant manager, sales rep, hypnotherapist, Reiki master practitioner and teacher, esthetician, a customer service specialist in a natural skincare company. And my latest and longest held incarnation and livelihood has been as a spiritual growth mentor, coach, author, and speaker for over 20 years. And in the last 25 years, maybe more, I've reinvented myself many, many times. But there's been a common denominator to all of this, up until now. I had to reinvent myself out of necessity so I could have my basic needs met. I needed to pay bills, pay off debt, pay rent, feed myself. My main concern was basic day-to-day survival. For a long time, it seemed like a luxury to think about getting more out of life than just getting my basic needs met. But when I really started to think about how many times I was able to completely shift roles, shift my focus, learn something new, master a new skill, and quite often change my identity or reality to suit my environment, I thought to myself, if I can do this because I have to, why can't I do this because I want to? I realized I could reinvent myself from a place of inspiration rather than desperation. I could use all of my acquired skills, insight, and wisdom from reimagining myself, and sometimes my entire identity, to not just choose a new profession, but rather to choose the truth of myself. I could choose an entirely new personal reality of my own design and live it to the fullest. I could and would choose who I truly wanted to be, someone who doesn't have to be defined by a role or some identity template of society that deems me acceptable only if I show up every day and manage the expectations of others or societal norms with which I had nothing to do with setting up. Up until this point of self-realization, I'm not sure whose life I was living or performing. All I knew was that it was not even close to my ideal. So I've been systematically chipping away at a persona I've used to adapt to the world, a world not of my making, for years now, getting ever closer to my core truth and highest expression. This is ongoing, but not without much wisdom gained along the way and plenty of information to share. I aim to make the case here for self-reinvention and why it is the imperative set before us as women. When I work in my business with female clients as an elevated consciousness coach, and I listen to them speak about the limits they feel are placed on them, the confining reality of their everyday lives, the distress and dread and frustration that grips them when it comes to asking for or feeling worthy of receiving more than what they need to just get by, the insecurity they feel of trying to navigate in a world of very confusing and mixed messages about who they are or who they should be as women, a powerful image comes to mind always. I often envision a caged tiger pacing its enclosure, trapped. The bars of confinement in this enclosure are not the fixed limits that these women perceive are placed on them by society as a whole. Rather, they are a collection of their fears, the fear of having too much of anything, mistrust of and disbelief in their own power, gifts, abilities, talents, fear of the responsibility of living as their ideal self, fear of not knowing how to create or sustain their ideal life. And if they are successful in this endeavor, they suffer from the worry that will all somehow be taken away from them. I often ask my clients, what do you really want? They are adept at explaining in great detail all the things they do not want. But there's often a prolonged silence before they can articulate clearly what it is that they do really want. This is not okay. So these amazing women, ripe with unrealized potential, have historically retreated to business as usual. In the past, they would continue to buy into the lie and the illusion of limitation that has swindled them out of a lifetime's worth of the big, bold dreams that they've been too scared to realize, actualize, or verbally express even. So they continue to secretly fantasize about them. As women, we've also become so overwhelmed by how much work there is yet to do for ourselves, for society as a whole, for the planet, for our children, for the animals, that we opt to marinate then into the same pool of perceived powerlessness, and we often do nothing. This is unacceptable. Business as usual is very costly to humanity as a whole. When we rest on the laurels of the status quo, we arrest the process of innovation. We don't move forward. Creative ideas are on pause. Without the collective feminine contribution to the forward positive momentum of humanity, we are ensuring that the balance is skewed towards the hypermasculine paradigm of world order that is long overdue for a reset. Aggression, oppression, domination, overt violence, competition, and separation will continue to reign supreme if we continue to sit on our hands and expect someone else to step up and wear the mantle of thought leader or way shower. Balancing the scales towards a more egalitarian society is an inside job. Restoring harmony and flow to a hypermasculine paradigm that is off the rails in so many ways is a charge, a sacred task, and a divine duty that must now be entrusted to the women and men in our society who have a healthy and balanced inner and outer expression of the qualities of the divine masculine and the sacred feminine, respectively. Balance and integrity must be restored to the planet. Mothership Earth is yearning for it. Humanity's current collective worldview is not self-sustaining. If we believe in a greater destiny for humanity, our future society is one that requires innovation and fresh ideas to create a higher vision for all. Executing that vision requires that we as women show up in the world with a bigger, bolder version for ourselves and all of humanity. We are charged with this divine task of transforming ourselves and the world while channeling the highest and most altruistic human expressions of compassion, kindness, understanding, and equality. With this, we prepare the fertile ground that will give birth to a whole new paradigm of prosperity for all. But we must correct the inner imbalance first. Truth is, as women, we have mastered the art of reinventing ourselves to match or meet the fixed limits of our society so that we can just get by with what we need. We've been well groomed with this over thousands of years. We've also been able to do it in the midst of one particular very mixed message. Be and do everything, but act like it's nothing. This is a mentality that has been imposed on us for far too long. This very limiting and confusing identity has not only given us one hell of a personality crisis, but it has also shaped our lives in some very unhealthy ways. This limiting identity feels very confusing. This limiting identity feels something like be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect employee, lover, girlfriend, daughter, sister, friend, but be content and satisfied with little or no acknowledgement, recognition, validation, or praise for it. The messaging is, in fact, you're not doing enough. Do more. But try to take up as little space and resources as possible as you're doing it. Don't complain, don't ask for more than what is absolutely needed, and don't call too much attention to yourself while you're doing it either. As I write this, I'm surprised at how much this hits home for me, for many women I know personally, and for many of my clients as well. Those who are willing and able to reinvent themselves as the need arises are the ones who will change the world for the better. So how do we do it? Look for part 2, and I will share more.